pachache sana. Kwa hivyo tunaomba wafanye hii kazi wakiwa wametembelea sehemu za mgange, wasifanye Nairobi, wajionee wenyewe hali ya maisha ya wale wa Taita ambao wanaishi huko juu. Asante sana Bwana Spika.
Senator Dulo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to support this petition. Mr. Speaker, it looks like this is really an extraordinary petition because you don't expect a community to fight with a church. Because as others have said, people normally run to church for solutions. And this is really unfortunate, and the committee should seriously look into it. Number two, Mr. Speaker, whenever there is a compulsory acquisition or acquisition of land, it happens in community land. And I think this is a matter that we seriously need to look into it, because every Tom, Dick, and Harry, they feel that they can go to their community land and take their land without even consulting them. I believe there is a legislation where the community and the relevant government institutions are on the ground. The community needs to be consulted. And actually, I have a similar situation where the road from Isiolo to Madogashe, the government has acquired land, and up to now, NLC, they have agreed to review the compensation figure, and they have not even done anything. I have brought a petition as a statement on the floor of this House, which up to now issues are not resolved. And I think the committee should seriously look into issues of compensation, and more specifically on community land, because where private land is involved, procedures are followed. But where community land is involved, nobody actually takes laws seriously in this country. And I support. I thank you.
Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like those who have spoken before me, I note with great concern that Christians are petitioning against their own church. Mr. Speaker, I noticed the mention of the area chief and the mention of the community elders. Traditionally, elders' word has been preceding the word and the opinion of chiefs. But this particular chief, as the committee goes to the ground, he must be one of the usual, typical big man syndrome sort of chief that we get in the rural areas, who, after the community allowed the church to be given 75, Mr. Speaker, 75 acres for free, then wanted to punish the community by wanting that they give away 1,000 acres. Maybe, Mr. Speaker, who knows? Probably the chief wanted to use that excuse to then help other land grabbers who have nothing to do with the Catholic Church to soil the good name of the Catholic Church. Mr. Speaker, this brings into question 2 points. The first one is the alternative dispute resolution mechanisms that were being promoted by former Chief Justice David Maraga. Probably a matter like this is best sorted out by the elders through the usual traditional sittings. Number two, Mr. Speaker, it brings into the question the issue of the land tenure policy in this country. Our land tenure policy is not sustainable. We have to slowly start educating our youth to know that in the fullness of time, not every Kenyan will have a title deed. In fact, sometimes I normally ask myself, why would a doctor like myself, a lawyer like you, 10 acres of land? You don't have to fight over your father's 100 acres of land. You can actually live as a professional doctor, people who are professional farmers to grow wheat, maize, and sugarcane for us. when the rest of us earn our livings from our intellectual property. I support, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Onyonka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to also support the discussion that my colleagues have had. The only thing I would suggest, Mr. Speaker, is that I think we need to have a different approach on how we are handling certain matters, including this issue of land. I think as our committee may be sitting down, and that's the Lands Committee, and my brother, Honorable Methu, is the chair, even when this might be a matter that the committee would want to handle in piecemeal form, because there are various matters known as land, which are questionable and which have raised very pertinent issues. One of the small recommendations I would make, Mr. Speaker, is that I would want to discuss it with Honorable Methu, if there is a possibility that we can actually come up with a discussion of setting up an ad hoc committee which will specifically be dealing with some of these matters of land, looking at the historical injustices, without necessarily going back to the Ndungu reports and all the reports that have come historically, because many of these issues, Mr. Speaker, are coming up, and there are so many from all counties and all areas. I think you've seen areas where you find, Mr. Speaker, when governors come in and they are sworn in, the first thing they do is beginning to go to people's land, whether the documentation was available or not. Some will say people who have this land are actually trying to steal the land, and it was not theirs, and all that kind of stuff. I think we need to create a semblance of order. And Mr. Speaker, one of the matters that I'm curiously watching the KK regime, and especially President William Ruto, is for us to have a system that is based on GPS spatial planning, where pieces of land and land which is owned in this country.
What is the point of order, Senator Boni?
Speaker, I raise understanding order number 105. Did you hear the senator of Kisii call the administration of Kenya Kwanza, headed by President William Ruto, as a regime? Could he table evidence to demonstrate that the administration is actually a regime? What we have is the popularly...
Order, Senator. Senator Boni.
Yes.
Kindly take your seat. Senator Onyonka, proceed to conclude your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would want to... Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think Boni must have had a very bad lunch today. And he says he did better than Honorable Speaker. Boni says he did better than Honorable Sifuna. I doubt.
What is the point of order?
With those few remarks, thank you, sir.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Just take your seat. The honorable
No,
member
the Speaker
has
is not. You are not the Speaker. Stop shouting.
Senator
What's your problem?
Cherengei, Senator
Relax, stop.
Sifuna.
Yes.
Senator Sifuna, please.
Yes.
There is only one chair, and that chair is me. Senator Cherengei, proceed to make your comments on the petition.
Mr. Speaker, under the meaning of, as I make my comment, under the meaning of the dictionary, regime means an authoritarian regime, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, however much you shout, this is not a marketplace. You must listen to what I'm saying.
Order, members. Senator Cherengei, I gave you the floor to
I'm proceeding, Mr. Speaker.
comment on the petition.
I'm commenting.
Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, the government we have in place is God-chosen, and it is a government that is not a regime. Regime is a wrong denotation of what the regime means. It is authoritarian. Mr. Speaker, what I wanted to say on the aspect
order members. Order.
On the aspect
Senators, kindly allow the senator to make his comments on the petition as presented by the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for that protection. Mr. Speaker, what I want to say is that I agree that the issue of land is an emotive issue. And my law lecturer, Professor Tom Ojenda, will tell you in the book of conveyancing that land is an emotive issue, Mr. Speaker, because Professor Tom Ojenda, who taught me land law and conveyancing, wrote extensively about conveyancing matters in this country. Mr. Speaker, and he begins that land is an emotive issue. Every African, Mr. Speaker, especially from where I come from, if you do not have land, you are nobody. You are not a man. Apart, of course, apart from other qualifications, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to encourage communities to use alternative dispute resolutions. And we have established a mediation center in this republic, Mr. Speaker, especially on land matters. I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, when you look at Kimasa's quarters in Kapsabet law courts, they have won a case against Africa Produce of 350 acres. They choose to use a judicial process, Mr. Speaker. One of the commitments of President William Ruto's government has been to ensure that no Kenyan should be evicted unlawfully. More so what we call infrastructural evictees, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge these communities. The church is part of the community is the church, Mr. Speaker, and therefore these prayers that has been put in place, Mr. Speaker, is very important. And the issue of land, Mr. Speaker, we need to be careful because there is a dangerous disease, Mr. Speaker, that continues to be a cancerous in this country. It is a disease called grabiosis. When you go, most of the road reserves have been grabbed, Mr. Speaker. Even when you drive all over, the people have built even next to the road reserve, Mr. Speaker. And yet when there is compulsory acquisition being done, Mr. Speaker, at the end of the day, the government ends up paying for its own land, which is public, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge the committee led by my young brother and the last born of the Senate, Senator Medhu, Mr. Speaker, to ensure they look into the issue of public land, Mr. Speaker. And we must even, Mr. Speaker, look at some of the people who have grabbed public facilities, including Kisumu molasses plant, Mr. Speaker, the other areas that we have one around, Mr. Speaker, in Kisumu, next to the airport, Mr. Speaker, areas that we are having here in Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, even the Senate and even the Parliament, Mr. Speaker, we must look at the title. And I want to urge, Mr. Speaker, that even the primary schools in this school, we had the famous Ruaraka Rand scandal, Mr. Speaker. Allegedly, the former minister was mentioned widely, Mr. Speaker. We need these people to be arrested so that we don't see the issue of land historical injustices, Mr. Speaker. We want them to be arrested, Mr. Speaker, so that we can ensure we protect the sanctity of title deed, Mr. Speaker. Because we don't want to reduce title deed into a tissue paper in this republic, where you are given a title, before you know it, there are many people who have title, Mr. Speaker. And that will be, I know, Mr. Speaker, where you come from. And you have been the governor of Kilifi County, Mr. Speaker, and the Speaker of this House. The issue of land historical injustices, Mr. Speaker, must and should be looked, because I know it affects the coastal area, Mr. Speaker. But I'm happy that being you part of the Speaker of this House and being a leader, Mr. Speaker, you have opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that issues of land historical injustice, not only in Nandi, Mr. Speaker. Finally, we have the issue of Talai land historical injustices. But when you go to Kericho, Mr. Speaker, and I normally say in this House, for the people who use choppers or sky team, as they call themselves, when you fly over Kericho and Bomet and Nandi, you think we are living in Canaan. We are not. Those tea plantations are stained with the blood, Mr. Speaker. The owners are drinking tea somewhere in London, Mr. Speaker, but we are suffering down there, Mr. Speaker. That matter must be put into, even here in Kiambu, Del Monte, Mr. Speaker, they must look at it, Mr. Speaker, because the great people of Kiambu have never benefited. The issue of land must be faced head on, Mr. Speaker. And I know that there are names there are names who are mentioned when people share them, Mr. Speaker, and they are part of the people who have grabbed land in this republic. They must be prosecuted, they must be arrested, Mr. Speaker. With those very many remarks, I support this petition.
Honorable Senators, we have expanded the time allowable for comments and in this petition. Before I call the chairperson for education, allow me to make the following communication. I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon, visiting teachers and students from Teresia Schools, Gilgil, Nakuru County. The group comprises 4 teachers and 28 students who are in the Senate for a one-day academic exposition. Honorable Senators, in a usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament. I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. Also, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon, visiting teachers and students from Milimani Primary School, Nairobi County. The group comprises 5 teachers and 229 students who are in the Senate for a one-day academic exposition. In our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. Lastly, in the public gallery, we have 5 students, accompanied by 3 teachers from Sabis International School, Nairobi County, who are in the Senate on an education tour. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I will allow the Senator for Nairobi, on behalf of the Senate, to, under 1 minute, to welcome the 3 delegations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to welcome the students from the 3 schools, the 2 schools from Nairobi and the 1 from Nakuru. On behalf of my colleague, the Senator for Nakuru, who is not in here, I want to welcome all of you to the Senate this afternoon. I'm hoping that you will get opportunity to learn 1 or 2 things during your tour. Mr. Speaker, just this morning I was at the Moi Forces Academy, where all the primary schools in Nairobi are having games there as we wait for them to proceed to the nationals in Kisumu. And I want to encourage these young people who are here this afternoon to work as hard as they can during their time in school, to listen to their teachers, their directive of the teachers and their parents, and to shoot for the sky. I don't think that in the current times that we live in, there is anything that is beyond anyone if you put your mind to it. So on behalf of the Speaker, the Senate, my colleague, the Senator for Nakuru, who is not here, I welcome you and I wish you a fruitful visit. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Chairperson Standing Committee on Education to present the report. Now, Senator Mazayo, you know you cannot stand on a point of order on the issues shared with me unless you have a different matter. However, honorable senators, you will recall that sometimes last week, the minority leader rose to seek for a statement on the security of the senators on the minority side, pursuant to the withdrawal of their security. Now, that matter is urgent, and I want to implore upon the relevant committee, that is the Defense, Security and Foreign Relations Committee, to expedite in bringing that statement to the floor of the House. At any rate, directing that we get a progress report before we proceed for recess next week. It is so directed. Proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. A petition report. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following petition report on the table of the Senate today on 3rd August 2023. The report of the Standing Committee on Education on the petition concerning payment of pension to teachers who retired between 1997 to 2007. The Chairperson, Standing Committee on Education. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me just summarize the issues under this petition. Just on issues concerning this petition is a matter concerning teachers who retired between the year 1997 to 2007. And I want to thank the committee, particularly and the petitioner who brought this matter before the committee, Mr. Philip K. Tor, And as a committee, we deliberated on the issue, involve all the stakeholders, particularly the Kenya National Union of Teachers, NAT, the Kenya Union of Primary Education Teachers, KUPPET, the Retired Benefit Authority, RBA, the Chief Executive Officer of TSC, and the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning. Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee deliberated on the matter, and out of the claims of teachers who had a problem of not being paid their arrears and their pensions, the number of 23,487 teachers whom they had a problem on their payment of their pension, we engaged the stakeholders, and later we engaged the Ministry of National Treasury, whom just the other week came to the committee and confirmed that they have paid quite a substantive number of teachers this pension, and the rest 1,300 teachers whom they are yet to pay, they confirmed that within three months, the deductions, the payment, the arrears will be paid. So I want to lay this report to the floor of the House as a concluded report by the committee. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
The Majority Leader. Senator Chirang'e, you know you can only raise on a point of order if another senator is on the floor and contributing. No, just have a seat, Senator.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate today, 3rd August 2023. 1. The Gabari Springs Catchment Protection Area Order Legal Notice number 104 of 2023. 2. The Kajulu Hills Catchment Protection Area Order Legal Notice number 105 of 2023. 3. The Manguo Swamp Groundwater Conservation Area Order Legal Notice number 106 of 2023. And 4, the Marura Ewaso Narok Swamp Catchment Protection Area Order, Legal Notice number 107 of 2023. I beg to lay. Thank you.
Next order, Clerk.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
Now, Honorable Senators, before we prosecute that order, I'd wish to, pursuant to Standing Order 45-2, to move to rearrange the sequence of today's order paper. Honorable Senators, if you look at today's order paper, the order number 9 and 11 are very urgent. We need to pass this motion. We also need to push the order number 11 to division so that we can be able to undertake division on it next week before we proceed on recess. I will therefore be seeking to, in this order, that we move straight away to conclude debate on order number 9 we conclude debate on order number 11 so that by next week we can move them to division before we break for our recess. After we are done prosecuting order number 9 and 11, we can then come back to questions and statements. But at least we will have moved these two orders to the level that we can be able to conclude on them next week. Clerk, kindly proceed in the manner. Before I allow the clerk to call the order as rearranged, allow me to make the following communication. Now, honorable senators, the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, CPA, is an international organization that brings together parliamentarians from over 180 parliaments and legislatures of countries and territories and within the Commonwealth community. The association was established in 1911, making it one of the oldest and most significant parliamentary institutions in the world. The CPA main objectives are to promote parliamentary democracy, provide a platform for parliamentarians and parliamentary staff to exchange ideas and best practices, and foster cooperation among member countries. The association is committed to upholding the values of the Commonwealth, including democratic governance, respect of human rights, equality, and the rule of law. Honorable Senators, the CPA Constitution provides for the establishment of branches, and the members of the legislature in which branch is formed are entitled to become members of the branch. Therefore, membership is open to all members of the Senate and the National Assembly on payment of the applicable subscription fee. The affairs of each branch are managed by the Executive Committee. Members of Parliament who wish to become members of the CPA are required to pay a subscription fee of 4,000 for life membership and Kenya shillings 1,000 for annual membership by completing a membership form. The membership form may be obtained from the office of the clerk. Honorable Senators, in accordance with the rules of CPA Kenya branch, the branch is required to hold the annual general meeting to, among other things, hold elections of members of the Executive Committee. For this purpose, the joint presidents have convened a meeting scheduled for Thursday, 10th August 2023 at 10 a.m. in the National Assembly chamber. The elected members of the Executive Committee will have the responsibility of steering the branch towards achieving the objectives of the association. The Executive Committee members will be chosen based on their expertise and dedication to the principles of the association. It is essential to elect individuals who can represent the interests of Kenya and contribute meaningfully to the CPA's collective efforts in promoting democracy, good governance, and respect for human rights and the rule of law. The available slots are 12 to be shared on a 3-5 ratio between the Senate and the National Assembly. In this regard, 5 members will be drawn from the Senate and 7 will be drawn from the National Assembly. Interested members will be expected to be members of the association, and only duly registered members will be eligible to participate in the elections. Honorable Senators, I therefore take this opportunity to bring this matter to the attention of all senators and encourage senators to join, for those who haven't done so, and also to invite interested senators to tender their applications for the election to the Executive Committee through a written notification to the office of the clerk before Tuesday, 8th August 2023. I thank you, Honorable Senators.
Order number 9, motion, adoption of the report of the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the county government's equitable share cash disbursement schedule for the financial year 23-24 and approval of the county government's cash disbursement equitable share schedule for the financial year 23-24.
Now, before debate was interrupted on Wednesday, Senator Muma was on the floor, and she had a balance of 15 minutes. Adoption of the report of the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the county government equitable share cash disbursement schedule for the financial year 2023-2024.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I had contributed to this report. I was midway through, and I was making the point that first I congratulated the government for the intention or the quick disbursement of all the funds to the counties, and I urged that in future we have funds meant for county governments to be disbursed on time, because we are all aware what the counties have suffered in the past few months. And secondly, I suggested, Mr. Speaker, that we need to remember that the function of oversight in Senate is a collective function that is served through the committees of the Senate, and I would urge that the committees be properly resourced, or Senate be properly resourced, in order for us to do meaningful oversight of implementation of county activities and county budgets. Mr. Speaker, it has been said in a few spaces by the President, by senators, even by some governors, that the presence of the Senate on the ground or machinani in terms of doing their job of oversight is very minimal. Mr. Speaker, as we finalize this financial year, most committees were not able to carry out all the activities they had scheduled because we were told there was no budget line to continue doing those activities. I would want, therefore, to request our commissioners on PSC to make case for the need for Senate to do its job properly. We cannot do our jobs properly if that oversight is merely dependent on what we do in these chambers. We should be able to move to the counties to be able to look at what is happening. The Committee on Devolution the other day went to Kajiado to actually look at a project on a market where petitioners had raised concern about it, and we have made recommendations that will actually be able to guide not just Kajiado County, but other counties on what we have seen. Mr. Speaker, we will need to do a bit more for us to be able to pick prudent and conformity with the rules of law and the Constitution in terms of implementation. We have seen governors use county monies on things like feeding programs in schools, which is a national government function. We have seen other governors trying to compete with members of parliament, trying to deploy funds that are required for county functions onto national government functions, and we have seen county government functions being ignored. Mr. Speaker, we will not pick this properly if we are not enabled to be able to scrutinize not just the CIDPs, but the kind of annual work plans that counties are making. For one to talk of a school feeding program, or for one to talk about a bursary fund, when the bursary funds, the CDF funds are awash on bursary matters, then we actually are not doing our job, because everybody goes on a podium to thump their chests about what they are doing on wrong functions, and yet their own functions are not being carried out. So I would urge that the Senate be enabled to be able to carry out, to have the resource necessary in terms of operations in order for us to be able to scrutinize the annual plans, to scrutinize the implementation plans in order for us to be able to monitor the developments that are happening with these funds. I therefore support, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chirange.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this committee report by the Finance and Budget, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, from the onset, I want to thank the President, His Excellency Dr. William Ruto, because when he was campaigning, he made a commitment that he will support the devolution, Mr. Speaker. I remember most of his competitors doubted that, but he has proved them wrong. Mr. Speaker, because historically, and Senator Stewart Matzaya is one of the oldest and ranking member of this House, apart from being minority leader, there is no time that counties have received their cash disbursement on time. Mr. Speaker, you being a former governor is well versed on this issue. Historically, and this has been the excuse where governors would go to funerals, would go to Arambes, especially my governor would say money has not been released. When Wananchi ask why are the roads bad, why are the drugs not there in Kapsabet County Referral Hospital, Kabiyet Referral County Sub-County Hospital, Mosoriat, or any part of Nandi, be it Tindred, Maraba Hospital, Mr. Speaker, the roads in Kapkulumben and Bokovala, among other areas, Mr. Speaker, the governor has always says the money has not been released. I'm happy with the comment that the president made while he was in Lamu. And he said he has released money to counties, and now it is the business of governors to deliver. I think the biggest elephant in the room, and we have considered, Mr. Speaker, even during Public Accounts Sitting Committee, including CPIC, where my brother, Senator Godfrey Otsosi is the chair, has been delayed cash disbursement by the National Treasury. Mr. Speaker, under Article 219 of the Constitution, it says the county share of revenue raised by the national government shall be transferred to the county without undue delay. Mr. Speaker, this is very important because if it is not released on time, it will affect the service delivery, Mr. Speaker. For example, Nandi, out of 7.3 billion, 05-294003 that will be dispersed in the financial year to Nandi County, financial year 2023-2024, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy that my county has received in June 620,949,993. And in this month, Mr. Speaker, my county has received 584,423 and 523 has gone to Nandi County. In total, in 2 tranches, Mr. Speaker, Nandi County has received over 1.2 billion shillings in 2 months, Mr. Speaker. But when you go to ground, they say if you to go ground, it's different, Mr. Speaker. It is raining in Nandi, roads are not passable, there are no drugs, Mr. Speaker. I think we need to be serious and urge county governments, Mr. Speaker, that they need to do their job. This money is not money that belongs to the governor or county government. It belongs to the great people of Kenya and the great people of Nandi, Mr. Speaker. 1.2 billion in 2 months, Mr. Speaker. I think we need to agree as a committee, Mr. Speaker, that as a Senate we must be proactive, Mr. Speaker. When we walk around, Mr. Speaker, most of the time, Wananchi ask us, what is Senate doing about plundering of resources? What is Senate doing that money can be used? Mr. Speaker, as a Senate, and I want to urge Senate Finance and Budget Committee to sometimes invoke Article 225, where counties have not used money in a transparent way, Mr. Speaker. I say there, and I don't fear to contradict myself, Mr. Speaker, that EACC is the biggest impediment in the fight against corruption in this country. When these issues are reported, especially pilferages of resources in counties, Mr. Speaker, EACC go and meet governors kwa nyuma ya tent, Mr. Speaker. And that is why, up to now, the fight against corruption in this country, Mr. Speaker, has been a joke, especially in county governments. Mr. Speaker, we have created 47 billionaires and millionaires because they are plundering the resources that is meant for counties, Mr. Speaker. I want to ask point number 2, Mr. Speaker, that the finance and budget, and as where Senator Roba is the chair, should look at the possibility of stopping the money under Article 225 that goes to counties, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, another point that I wanted to make, Mr. Speaker, is on the pending bill. Mr. Speaker, as we talk, why would it be? And counties have procurement plans, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the pending bills that you are talking about are less than 1 million. They are 500,000. They are 2 million, Mr. Speaker. These are poor Kenyans. These are young people. Their LPOs, Mr. Speaker, have been financed by banks through a loan, Mr. Speaker. Can you believe from 2013, Mr. Speaker, there are people in counties that are still being owed, Mr. Speaker, 500,000 up to date, Mr. Speaker. I think I agree that we need to pass the Prompt Payment Bill Act, Mr. Speaker, so that when you supply, there is a timeline of even 3 months for you to be paid, both by national and county governments, Mr. Speaker. Where do we get the pending bills? Mr. Speaker, it is interesting, as a Senate, and we must ask ourselves, we must prick our conscience. When you go to National Treasury, all money has been released to counties. But when you go on the ground, there are people still being owed by money. So where does this money go, Mr. Speaker? And that is why I say EACC has failed this country, Mr. Speaker, in the protection of devolution, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, another biggest challenge in counties, Mr. Speaker, number 4, is on the issue of incompleted projects, Mr. Speaker. Free advice, Mr. Speaker. Why would your predecessor find it hard to complete projects that you started, Mr. Speaker? Yet they know very well those projects do not belong to you, Mr. Speaker. It belongs to the great people of Kilifi, of Nandi County, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we talk today, there are many stalled projects from 2013, 2017, like the governor's office in Kapsabet town. And I know Senator Ochosi might have been, because that is his shortcut to Vihiga, might have seen that white elephant, Mr. Speaker. These are incompleted, Mr. Speaker. When you look at even CIDP, Mr. Speaker, like, for example, the flagship projects that have been marked for improvement, and sometimes, Mr. Speaker, some of us who are passionate for the success of devolution, we feel very bad because we come here and pass money, but when we go on the ground, it is not reflected. Mr. Speaker, for example, in Nandi, I don't want to use any other county, we have a cooperative creameries in Kabiet, Mr. Speaker. It was supposed to be completed in 2021. No one, even the governor, when he appeared before CPAC, has ever told us what is the total value of Kabiet Creameries Limited, for example, Mr. Speaker. Even the Kapsabet Pediatric Wing, what is the total value of that project, Mr. Speaker? Even Kobuchai, expansion of Kobuchai dispensary, what is the total value, Mr. Speaker? Even Kapsengere, Mr. Speaker, expansion, what is the total value of that, Mr. Speaker? Even the expansion of Maraba, among other 196 health facilities, Mr. Speaker. Even Chepterwai, and I want to thank the President, Dr. William Ruto, because he supported the expansion of Chepterwai Nyayo Hospital in Masab sub-county, Mr. Speaker. Up to now, Mr. Speaker, no one can tell us the value. The projects have stalled. When you raise questions, Mr. Speaker, the farthest that the county government can go is to ensure that they hire blockers and other people to insult the senator in funerals and baby showers and other public forums, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as a country, we must be honest and speak truth to the power, Mr. Speaker. We cannot be intimidated. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, on the floor of the House, I shall not be intimidated. I shall not be coward. I will not succumb to insults, Mr. Speaker, because I know the highest calling is the election by the great people, Mr. Speaker, of Nandi. So on the issue of CIDP, Mr. Speaker, we need to look at the CIDP, annual development plans, Mr. Speaker. County assets, Mr. Speaker, is one of the greatest challenges that we are facing, Mr. Speaker. When you look at the county assets, Mr. Speaker, I am shocked that most counties do not have a complete asset register as we talk today, Mr. Speaker. There are many assets that have been acquired, Mr. Speaker. For example, in Nandi, we have acquired a tractor to prepare silage, Mr. Speaker. And this is interlinked with the on-source revenue, Mr. Speaker, in the quick succession. Where is the assets? For example, let me use an example in Nandi. Mr. Speaker, we have an asset called Kiborko Tea Estate in Mgwen sub-county, Mr. Speaker. Up to now, out of 256 acres that Kiborko Tea Estate, Mr. Speaker, you know, for people who plant tea, including I had seen Senator Sigei and others, Mr. Speaker, you cannot tell me 256 acres can give you 15 million in a year through own source revenue. So, Speaker, these assets should allow the county to generate the revenue, Mr. Speaker. To generate, Mr. Speaker, so that you can be able, up to now, Kiborgo Tea Estate, the ownership, you have a title deed from one part, there is another part, Mr. Speaker. You cannot talk about the management, Mr. Speaker, management of the aspect of the management company that runs the Kiborgo Tea Estate to improve on the proceeds, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, own source revenue, because it ties up with the assets, Mr. Speaker, should be able to generate money outside equitable shareable revenue, Mr. Speaker, including the conditional grants, Mr. Speaker, the donations and other additional funds as per the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. The own source revenue is, it shocks me. When counties pass finance bill, Mr. Speaker, they go for public participation. They start chasing Mama Mboga and Boda Boda to tax them. But, Mr. Speaker, when you go where Mama Mboga and Boda Boda stay, because they say kulipa ushuru ni kujitegemea, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, can you believe when it comes to collecting taxes from the Boda from Mama Mboga in Nandi County, you clobber them, Mr. Speaker. But when it comes to doing service for them, Mr. Speaker, for example, even in my local center, Mosoria Township, where I come from, where I was born and bred, Mosoria Township Center, Mr. Speaker. As we talk, our women in Mosoria Township Center are selling their mboga and other merchandise in open air, Mr. Speaker. But when it comes to collecting revenue, the county is quick. Go to Nandils Town, Mr. Speaker. Go to Kapsabet. In fact, the Kapsabet market is the worst of all, Mr. Speaker. Can you believe when you go to Kapsabet market, the headquarters of Nandi, Mr. Speaker, there is no toilet, there is no running water, there is no proper sanitation in Kapsabet, the town market, Mr. Speaker. Similarly to Maraba, similarly to Kaptumo, similarly to Kobuja, Mr. Speaker, we must as a country ensure when we collect, Mr. Speaker, the own source revenue from the people. Mr. Speaker, when you go to Chemelil Chemase, Mr. Speaker, our boda are staying in the sun, yet they pay, Mr. Speaker, for the boda sticker. But there are no boda shades. They have been forced to construct boda shades using grass, Mr. Speaker. And yet, when it comes to collecting that money, Mr. Speaker, we use county enforcement as carries to go and harass Mama Mboga and boda, for example, in Nandi, Mr. Speaker, at the expense of providing service, Mr. Speaker. Because the clarion call of Kenya Revenue Authority ni kulipa ushuru ni kujitegemea. And that is what we are saying. Let it be pay tax, get service. Why would you pay tax and there is no service, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, it pains me. And I hope when we go to devolution, Mr. Speaker, I'll request the Committee of Trade to visit even Kapsabet Town Market, which is the headquarters, Mr. Speaker. I pity those women. Our women are very beautiful and hardworking in this country, Mr. Speaker. But when you go, there is no toilet, there is no water, there is no electricity. They cannot even, kujisitiri, how do you call it in English, Mr. Speaker? They don't even have dignity. I wish they could be motivated, Mr. Speaker, so that they work in a clean environment, they get water and electricity, so that when they are paying taxes, they dance and celebrate the way Kenyans are celebrating because of the Finance Act that the courts have allowed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we must be honest so that we motivate, Mr. Speaker. We must agree, Mr. Speaker, so that we can, and I can see minority side are very happy until they have gone to take tea, led by Senator Sifuna. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, let us be honest in this country. I saw even in Kingwal, our women roast maize, but they don't have shades. It is raining in Nandi. I don't know other areas. This is a rainy season, Mr. Speaker. Our women are forced to go daily to hospital. By the way, Mr. Speaker, what is funny about Nandi is this. You go and buy in Kapsabet Town Market. You are not sure of your hygiene. You get sick, you go to Kapsabet County Referral Hospital, there are no drugs. You go back and buy from the pharmacy, which are run by county staff. So, it shocks, it doesn't make sense. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, some of us are at pains. Because wananchi in Nandi sometimes asking me, what is the role of devolution? Where is this money that you are bringing, Mr. Speaker? We must be held accountable at any given point, Mr. Speaker. I have seen even the NARIC, Mr. Speaker, the DANIDA, other organizations, Mr. Speaker. They give a lot of money to rural agriculture, Mr. Speaker. The county went and bought avocado seedlings, Mr. Speaker. And you give a farmer one avocado seedling, it doesn't make value, Mr. Speaker. The other, Mr. Speaker, they went and bought chicken and chicks. Chicken and chicks. What do you call, Mr. Speaker? Chicken and chicks. Vivaranga, chicken and chicks, Mr. Speaker. No, stop misleading me. I know Senator Eddie through you, Mr. Speaker.
Just proceed and stay focused. Stay focused and proceed and conclude.
I will stay focused, Mr. Speaker, as guided. My eyes is on the price. Mr. Speaker, that is why even NARIC, I want to ask Finance Committee, also provide us, we have passed a law on the issue of conditional grants, Mr. Speaker. You find counties are given NARIC, and Mr. Speaker, having been a former governor, you are well versed with these issues I'm raising, and I'm happy that you are a former governor and you understand. Counties are given money through NARIC, through World Bank. They decide and go and buy chicks. In some scenario, some counties went and bought fingerlets, fingerlings, sorry. They went and bought fingerlings, Mr. Speaker, and just throw it on a stream. How can you throw it on fingerlings on the stream and say this is a county project, Mr. Speaker? And we heard of a county somewhere in Mount Kenya East. I don't want to name the name of that county, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, because I can see my time is fast spent, I am happy that Nandi is getting 7.3 billion. But I'm sad that that money will not translate to the value to the people of Nandi. Even 1.2 billion for June and August, there is nothing that is happening on the ground, Mr. Speaker. Even, Mr. Speaker, the national government gave us coolers that is meant to store our milk, Mr. Speaker. But up to now, those coolers have not gotten a proper housing where farmers can take milk, Mr. Speaker. And you know, as we thank the President, Mr. Speaker, and I'm going to ask the Agriculture Committee, led by Senator Murango, that the issue of reducing fertilizer is welcome, from 3,500 to 2,000 by the President. But it is a national government project. I want to ask the Agriculture Committee, where is the role of Senate? Governors will go quickly, Mr. Speaker, on the ground and say to Moaletea Mbolea. What will senators say? What will the member of national? I want to ask the Agriculture Committee to engage the the governors will go and say, we have brought fertilizer. Somebody will ask, what is the senator and member of National Assembly has brought? So we must, Mr. Speaker, we must be honest with ourselves, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank this committee. Thank you for the schedule. I hope this money will meet. And I want to conclude by saying, Mr. Speaker, we increased money that went to counties. In the last financial year, it was 370 billion. I want to thank President William Ruto. We increased to 3 billion, an additional to 15 billion, Mr. Speaker. With those very, very remarks, Mr. Speaker, allow me to rest there and congratulate and wish the committee well as they proceed and ensure that this money is dispersed. And I hope next week, Mr. Speaker, we shall be able to pass this cash disbursement schedule and be able so that wananchi will get opportunity of this service delivery. With those very, very many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support.
Senator Chiranga, just approach the chair, please. I called the Honorable Senator because he had an assignment to do, and he was supposed to table a report, which I'm told he did He's just informed me that he tabled the report. Senator Edwin Sifuna.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just let me get my notes. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, as a new legislator in this House. This is the second report of the Finance and Budget Committee that I'm interacting with, after, of course, the report on Division of Revenue. Mr. Speaker, I have had lamentations of some of the senators who have spoken before me about the inadequacy of the resources that we've been sending to the county governments. But the country needs to know that we as a Senate had an opportunity to increase the resources that
Senator Perez, Tobacco, and Senator Essie. You can consult, yes, but not to disrupt the proceedings of the House.
Yes, we as a Senate had an opportunity to increase the resources that go to our county governments. As I look at this schedule, as a senator of Nairobi, I can see, of course, that Nairobi has the highest allocation of about 20 billion shillings annually. I know from my calculations, Mr. Speaker, that if this House had agreed with the earlier report of the Finance Committee and voted for 407 billion shillings to our counties, Nairobi would be hitting almost 22 billion shillings. So, to hear lamentations from some of my colleagues who voted against 407 billion shillings, that just does not make sense for me. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to point to page 5 of that report. This particular schedule is stated by the committee to serve two things. First, by compliance with Article 219 of the Constitution, which expressly provides that the county's share of revenue raised by the national government shall be transferred to the county governments without undue delay and without deduction. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the schedule itself, it's not just about the amount of money that each county is getting. If you look at the top of that column, the first column at the top there, Mr. Speaker, there is a date that is provided for when these counties can expect that this money is going to be in their accounts. Mr. Speaker, county money, the money that counties expect under devolution, is not a favor. It is not a favor. It is a constitutional right. We Kenyans ourselves decided that we are going to have two levels of government and that we are going to finance both levels of government. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, what I usually say is that there should be no one who expects praise for doing what is the constitutional imperative. If sending money to the counties is a constitutional imperative, do not expect us to praise you for sending money to the counties. If you are doing a constitutional imperative, that is not something you have a choice in. Mr. Speaker, I have heard people here praising some quotas for saying, oh, money has been released to the counties. That is your job. That is a job of the executive, to ensure that our counties are financed on time. This schedule here, Mr. Speaker, once we pass the schedule, the people of Nairobi expect that by the 15th of July of this month and by the 15th of August next month, each of the counties will have received the monies that have been specified.
Senator Sifuna.
Yes,
the
Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chirange wishes to inform you.
I reject in total that offer. Mr. Speaker,
what is your point of order, Senator Boni?
Mr. Speaker, you've heard severally. I'm rising on standing order number 105. The senator for Nairobi speak to a misleading statement that the amount which was allocated in Dora bill, there was no increment. Yes. Mr. Speaker, the second falsehood is alleging here is that there's a delay in the disbursement of funds. And yet, Mr. Speaker, as late as last week, there was no single county with an arrears. In fact, last week, Mr. Speaker, 32 billion shillings was disbursed. Is in order to mislead the House, knowing that Dora, that we passed here, raised the money from 370 billion to 385.3 billion, and that all the arrears that had been accumulated by the handshake BBI government was cleared. Is he in order?
Senator Sifuna, kindly be factual in your comments.
Mr. Speaker, it is a fact that the 15 billion shillings additional that is going to the counties was passed not by the Senate, but by the National Assembly. In the Green Bill that came before this House, that money had been allocated by the National Assembly. We as a Senate did not add a single shilling. Our own committee, Mr. Speaker, I must be heard in silence. This cannot continue. This cannot continue.
Order, honorable senators. Order, honorable senators. If I hear the senator correctly, he said that the Senate did adopt the bill as it came from the National Assembly.
Correct.
And that is factual.
Yes. That is factual, Mr. Speaker. Can I proceed?
What is your point of order, Senator Boni?
Mr. Speaker, according to the Constitution of Kenya, the DORA bill cannot be signed into law without the concurrence of the two houses. Mr. Speaker, is the Senator for Nairobi in order to mislead the country that by us agreeing with the National Assembly, we were failing in our responsibility, and yet we were meeting the constitutional threshold that expects that for DORA to become law, it should need the concurrence of the two houses, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, in conclusion on this point of order, I'm tired and sick of new senators in this House giving the impression that we don't know what we are doing, we are not up to the task. We have worked, Mr. Speaker, and we want our constituents to appreciate us much. I don't earn a free salary.
Senator Boni, if I had Senator Sifuna make his comments, this is what he said. That the Senate adopted the figure as passed by the National Assembly. So there was concurrence of the figure between the two houses, which is factual. So I don't see why then there is a big problem there, Senator Boni. The two houses concurred that the figure to increase by the 15 billion from last year's allocation. Where is the problem here? Senator Sifuna, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want the conscience of all of us to eat us in our sleep and in our waking for the decisions that we take on this floor, Mr. Speaker. And I am happy and I will not tire to remind that in fact, Mr. Speaker, there is a second limb to the facts that we have alluded to here, that our own committee on finance and budget, on the advice of the Commission of Revenue Allocation, did propose to this House that instead of the 385 given by the National Assembly, we as a Senate should go with the figure of 407. That is also a fact. That question of 407 or 385 was put to us as a Senate, as a House, as individual senators elected to get every single coin we can for our counties. 22 of my colleagues, whose conscience you can see is knowing at them, voted against 407 billion shillings. Let their conscience eat them until the day that I die. But you will not run away from a vote that you took. Nobody forced you to vote in that particular manner.
What is the point of order, Senator Chirange? And as you raise your point of order, please.
Mr. Speaker, is it in order? I'm raising
Senator
under...
Chirange, I'm speaking.
Okay.
As you stand to raise the point of order, please use parliamentary language. Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, is it in order? And I rise under Standing Order 105 and under Article 93 of the Constitution of Kenya, where it defines Parliament as National Assembly and Senate? Is it in order for Senator Sifuna to continue misleading Kenyans by now shifting goalposts between 407 and 370 billion, Mr. Speaker? Yet for us, who have been in this house long enough, note that it was an increment of 15.3 billion from 370 to 385.3 billion, Mr. Speaker. Is it in order, can Senator Sifuna confirm to the country that there was an increment to allocation to the counties through Dora Bill, Mr. Speaker?
Well, Senators, let us stop this hand-pecking exercise on these figures. The position is, as Parliament, Senator Eddy, this is the position. The bill that went to the President for assent is a bill of Parliament because it was processed in both houses. Yes. Yes. And upon being assented to, it became an act of Parliament. Yes. Meaning, yes, whatever increment of the monies as compared to last year is an effort, was a collective decision of both houses. That's why it's an act of Parliament. I don't know why we are still arguing on these very basic facts. Can you allow Senator Sifuna to conclude his comments in silence, please? And Senator Sifuna, be guided by the chair's observation on that particular matter.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. What I know is that I am required to comply with the standing orders in my debate. I have stated matters of fact. If those facts are things you are uncomfortable with, that is your own funeral. But I must state the facts as I know them. Mr. Speaker, let me proceed by saying...
Senator Sifuna, are you saying if the chair is uncomfortable with those facts, then the chair should...
No, I'm addressing you because I don't want to address the people who
Senator
are in
Sifuna,
discomfort.
just take to your comments, please.
Mr. Speaker...
Senator Chirange and Senator Boni, allow the senator to conclude his comments, please.
Mr. Speaker, if there is unparliamentary language that I have used, you need to point it out. I am just saying.
Senator
yes.
Sifuna, Senator Sifuna, indeed you've used unparliamentary language to the extent.
Which one?
To the extent that you've said for those who voted against, let the conscience eat. I think the Hansard will.
Mr. Speaker, that is not unparliamentary. That is linguistic gymnastics, which I'm allowed to perform on this particular
I know exactly what you're saying. So going forward, Senator Sifuna, refrain from using unparliamentary language.
Mr. Speaker, I am going to find the most flowery language to describe what happened on this House. When the vote for division of revenue was put...
Can the senator be heard in silence? Senator Chirange, proceed.
When the vote was put here, you had an option to vote yes, to agree with the committee, just like we have been asked. Under this particular... Mr. Speaker, can I please be heard in silence? Please.
You've raised your concern. Senator Sifuna, our standing orders provide very clearly on how you should refer to your colleagues. You refer them as honorable senators. There are no people here, there are no guys here. We have honorable senators.
I apologize for that, Mr. Speaker. I am going to look for the most flowery language to remind the distinguished senators on the majority side that your conscience will follow you and the decisions that you take on this floor are public. Mr. Speaker, we have another opportunity. There is another report of the Finance Committee here. I would actually not be surprised if people, again, take the decision that they took during the debate on the Division of Revenue Act. Mr. Speaker,
I have just
please.
told you, Senator Sifuna, do not use the word people. Refer them to honorable senator. That is the requirement of the standing order.
Mr. Speaker,
How would you feel if your colleague refer you as...
But I am people. I am people. Mr. Speaker, it is not offensive language. It is not offensive language to call people.
Senator, order, Senator. Senator Sifuna, take your seat. Senator Sifuna, kindly take your seat. Senator Sifuna, you're not going to start a debate with the chair. You know exactly what amounts. It amounts to a disorderly conduct. And the consequences are very clear. You're a person, you're a people. But that is the language that is allowable outside the doors of these chambers. As long as you're in this chamber, you shall refer to your colleagues as honorable senators. Kindly proceed. What is your point of order, Senator Bond?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, understanding order number 122, and Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to read, that speaks to disorderly conduct. Yes. Number 1B, a senator who declines to retract the use of unparliamentary language or declines to offer apologies despite having been ordered to do so by the Speaker is engaged in disorderly conduct. Mr. Speaker, I cannot be voted for by 300,000 people in Kakamega, and Mr. Speaker, I come here and be made a figure of the kind of picture that the Honorable Senator for Nairobi is painting. We need to call him on order unless, Mr. Speaker, you want to allow this House to degenerate into a fist fight. If you allow me as a bullfighter, I'll fix him here and now, and it will be sorted out. Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Boni, that Senator Mogeni, have your seat. Senator Sifuna, have your seat. Sit down, Senator Sifuna. Senator Boni, that is unparliamentary. You have to withdraw it. Senator Sifuna, when I brought up the issue of how to address his colleagues, he proceeded to withdraw that. He did withdraw, unless you're not keen. Senator Boni, you were doing very well until you brought out your character of bullfighting.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker,
Senator Boni, you cannot threaten to fix honorable senators on the floor of this House. Kindly proceed to withdraw that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to confirm, as I withdraw and apologize to the House, that this is not the place to fix him, and I would never fix him in this House. But if he gives me an opportunity, Mr. Speaker, outside this House,
there, Senator
we cannot allow.
Just leave it there.
Mr. Speaker, we cannot allow small voice.
Senator Boni, have your seat. Now, honorable senators. Order, honorable senators. Order, honorable senators. We have such an important order to prosecute before us. We have such an important matter to prosecute before us. We are wasting a lot of time on what I will term, Senator Mogeni, you shut up, the chair is speaking. I have not given you the opportunity to speak. Senator Mogeni, you're out of order and I'm calling you to order. Then wait for the chair to give you that opportunity. You persist, you know exactly what will befall you. Now, honorable senators, we have such an important matter before us. We are taking a lot of time, seriously on frivolous, if I will say, points of order. Senator Sifuna, the way you're making your comments, you're inviting unnecessary points of order. You're making good points, but there's a way you can put them across without necessarily having to attract the kind of points of order. Stop throwing jabs. Go straight to your comments, make your comments, let's conclude this business. Proceed, Senator Sifuna.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the avoidance of doubt, it gives me great pleasure to again withdraw my comments by referring to honorable senators as people. I withdraw and apologize. Mr. Speaker, what I want to make clear is that there is no point in us having a conversation in this particular house or debate in this house if we offend people's sensibilities, even when we are within the rules. Then we cannot have a debate because some people are uncomfortable when history is revisited. But let history judge all of us. I have no problem with that. The point that I was making, Mr. Speaker, is that all these lamentations lack of drugs or services in your county, when you had an opportunity to better the lot of your county, but you chose other things. Mr. Speaker, let me repeat here that you should not expect plaudits. You should not be expecting that people will praise you or say you are a good man because you've done something that you are required to do anyway, something that you are paid to do anyway. It's like us or myself here expecting that the people of Nairobi will clap for me because I came to the chamber this afternoon. That is exactly what I was elected to do. We were elected here to fight for all the resources that we can get to come to our counties. And when we do the opposite, we should learn to live with the decisions that we take. Let's not run away from the decisions that we've taken, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, here in Nairobi, we have issues that need to be addressed. And I just want to touch on some of them. Just this financial year, last financial year, Nairobi County was opening its first ICU. The entire Nairobi County did not have ICU beds, Mr. Speaker. We need resources for us to expand the facilities at Mama Lucy. And I have spoken to the question of timely disbursement of resources. The schedule here has two components. It has an amount and it also has a date. It is our expectation going forward, because this is a concern that has been expressed even by the committee itself. If you look at page 6 of the report, that the delays in disbursement to counties negatively impact the operations and service delivery as well as priority funding. Our governor here has set upon an ambitious plan of feeding kids in school, and it is costing us as a county about 800 million shillings per year. And Mr. Speaker, that is just for a fraction of the school-going children, because this amount that he is using for this particular program is only for the kids in public schools. A large majority, a large proportion of the students in Nairobi are not in public schools. They are in what we call semi-formal schools. And we would want an opportunity that this program expands. In fact, there's people who've gone to court to say it is discriminatory for you to have such a program to benefit only people in public schools, yet a vast majority of the students are not in those particular schools. They are in non-formal schools. Mr. Speaker, we have county playgrounds here in Nairobi. We have a lot of talent. Just like I was saying earlier to you, I was at Moi Forces Academy this afternoon for the Kenya Primary Sports Association Games to determine the team that will represent Nairobi in the national games in Kisumu. There's a lot of talent in Nairobi, but we don't even have proper playing grounds. If you go to Camp Toyoyo, a pitch that was built a few years ago, it used to host all the games that were being played pale mtaani. But Mr. Speaker, if you look at the playing surface right now, it is in such bad shape that we need all the resources we can get for us to be able to provide proper facilities. The governor, out of the money that the county is receiving this particular year, has set aside about 500 million shillings for the refurbishment of City Stadium. And the shame of this country, I have seen people going around saying, we're going to bid to host African Cup of Nations, I don't know which year it is. You know for a fact you are lying to Kenyans. You don't have the facilities to do these things. If Kenyans elected truthful leaders who kept their word, we would be enjoying the 6th stadium that we were promised in 2013. But right now, we are just wallowing in this miasma, people lying to us that we're going to host continental games when every Kenyan knows it is not going to happen. Mr. Speaker, out of my experience in the Parliamentary Accounts Committee, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sifuna.
Yes.
Would you wish to be informed by...
Absolutely never. Absolutely never. Mr. Speaker, one of the things we experienced in the Parliamentary Accounts Committee, when we had a conversation...
What is the point of order, Senator Chiraga?
Mr. Speaker, I'm rising under Standing Order 101 and 105 because the senator, is it in order for Senator Sifuna to indicate that this country has never hosted a continental sports event. Yet Kipchoge Keino Classic was done in Eldoret, and also severally it was done, all African Games was done here, the athletics was done here in Kasarani. Is it in order for him to mislead the great people of Nairobi and Kenyans by alleging that this country has never hosted or held, Mr. Speaker, the events. Is it in order?
Order. Senator.
And World Rally Championship, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chirangei, when your colleagues are speaking, it's good to pay attention. So that when you raise on a point of order, you raise on a point of order on the speech that they've made. I do not see how your point of order is warranted as far as the speech by Senator Sifuna is saying. He never, I did not, unless the Hansard bears as witness, I did not hear him say that as a country we have not hosted continental events. He alluded to just one event that as a country would wish to host. That is the AFCON. Okay. And he said, with the state of infrastructure we have, we may not be able to do that, but we could have been able to do that had we started this journey in 2013. That's what I got to understand from the Honorable Senator. Senator Sifuna, what is the point of order, Morgan?
Mr. Speaker, Senator Cheragay is one of my closest friends in this House. And he's a
Senator
colleague.
Mogeni.
He's a colleague.
Whom are you trying to call to order?
He's a colleague whom I respect.
Senator Mogeni?
Yes.
When you stand on a point of
I'm
order,
rising under.
Whom are you trying to call to order? Because the senator on the floor is Senator Sifuna.
Yes. I'm raising under standing order.
Is that the senator you're calling to order?
Yes.
Senator Sifuna. He's out of order. According to you.
No. I was raising on a point of order. When Senator Cheragay was on the floor.
He was on a point of order. You cannot do that. So, Senator Mogeni, kindly take your seat. Kindly. Senator Sifuna.
Mr. Speaker, with the great respect, I think I'm going to break the record as the senator who is interrupted the most on this particular floor. And I understand the fear and trepidation that I strike in the hearts of some of
Sifuna,
these
just
people.
proceed to make your comment.
But, Mr. Speaker, please, I need the protection of the chair.
I have protected you enough.
Mr. Speaker, I don't even know.
So, if you engage the chair directly, I have called you to conclude your comments. What more protection do you need?
The direction I wanted is how much time I have left, Mr. Speaker, given all sorts of interruptions that have gone since I
just
took
proceed.
the floor.
The chair will protect you. Proceed.
I need guidance so that I can be able to see
how many minutes? 5 minutes, Senator.
Yes. I think that is enough to impart wisdom and knowledge, Mr. Speaker. I want to make two final points, Mr. Speaker. And this is drawn from the experience that I had at the County Public Accounts Committee when we had an engagement with the Treasury and the KRA. Mr. Speaker, it was clear that the National Treasury has taken the word national in its name to imply or to mean that they serve the interests of the national government first. Mr. Speaker, the evidence is there that just 2 months to the close of the financial year 2022-2023, 20% or 90 billion that was due and had been allocated to the county governments had not been dispersed just 2 months to the close of the financial year. And compare that to the only 10% of the almost 2 trillion shillings that was due to the county, to the national government that had not been disbursed. One of the things that we want to see is that the National Treasury should be encouraged in the disbursement of resources to respect the two levels of government so that there is no favoritism, as can be demonstrated from the amount of money that was spending during this financial year, just those few months to the close of the year. Mr. Speaker, as I have said, we in Nairobi have a lot of issues. We would like for devolution to work. We would like for all the resources we can get to go to the people of Nairobi so that they can be able to do the things that is expected of us as a county government. Mr. Speaker, what I want to finalize by saying
is that I have a lot of respect for all of our colleagues here. But Mr. Speaker, it is becoming increasingly evident to me that I might be a marked man in this House. That, Mr. Speaker, every time that I stand up here, I have even had somebody who I know for a fact cannot beat me in a fair fight, challenging me to a fight, Mr. Speaker.
Sifuna.
It is very unfair.
Senator Sifuna.
Yes.
It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Senator Sifuna, you know the responsibility of protecting a senator lies in the hands of the chair. If you feel you've been marked, you can only address your concerns to the chair. Throwing similar jabs on the other side, because you've been, and I ruled that particular statement unparliamentary, but still you're clinging on it.
No, Mr. Speaker, because a threat has been made.
It has been withdrawn. So conclude your remarks and sit.
Mr. Speaker,
it's no longer subject of discussion. It has been withdrawn.
Mr. Speaker, if you allow me, because I've asked you to protect me on many occasions, I want to ask that on this one, please don't protect me. I would want to welcome that challenge that has been put by the Senator of Kakamega.
Senator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, Senator Sifuna, you know, you've alluded to the fact that you're the senator who attracts the most points of order. And you remember when you're contributing, I cautioned you, asked you the way you're contributing may either open yourself to these points of order or it may insulate you from these points of order. Your parting shot clearly is unparliamentary and uncalled for because you're responding to a statement that is no longer part of the record of the Senate. It has been withdrawn. Why then proceed to respond to it? So the way we debate will either allow your colleagues to give you silence as you prosecute your comments, or it will open a lot of points of order, just the way you contribute. So look into your eyes before you look into the eyes of your colleagues. But otherwise, the chair will be here to give you what it gives to all other senators, protection. Senator Karungo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Karungo, just have your seat. I'm told there's a school that is going all the way back to Baringo. So let me acknowledge its presence. Honorable Senators, I'd like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon, visiting teachers and students from Junior Marks Academy, Muchuko, Baringo County. The group comprises 7 teachers and 33 students who are in the Senate for a one-day academic exposition. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate, on my own behalf, I wish them a fruitful visit. Also, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon, visiting teachers and students from Chebonei Girls High School, Bomet County. The group comprises 4 teachers and 100 students who are in the Senate for a one-day academic exposition. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate, on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. Likewise, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon, visiting teachers and students from Homa Bay Town Constituency Students Association, Homa Bay County. The group comprises 18 teachers, students, who are in the Senate for a one-day academic exposition. In our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I will allow the Senator for Baringo to make welcoming remarks under 1 minute on behalf of, to welcome the delegation from Baringo County, and then followed by the Senator for Bomet County, and 1 minute to welcome the delegation from Bomet County, and the Senator Eddie, Senator Beatrice to, under 1 minute, to say a word of welcome, to welcome the delegation from Homa Bay County. In that order, kindly proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to welcome the students and the teachers from Chunya Max School from Baringo County. Mr. Speaker, this is a new school. And it is one of the schools that, Mr. Speaker, is doing well in terms of their performance. And Mr. Speaker, I just want to welcome them to this house. This is a house of senators of Kenya. They have been able to see the live debate, Mr. Speaker, here. And Mr. Speaker, I want to tell them that it is possible that if you work hard, you become resilient in your studies, you become disciplined. One time, one day, you could actually be in this house to represent Baringo as either a senator or an MP. And Mr. Speaker, it is possible that we can be what we are if we work hard. I want to welcome them and wish them safe journey back home and look forward to meeting them outside there, Mr. Speaker, as I invite them out to farewell. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Chebonei Girls is a sister school to Tenwek High School, a school that I cherish, that I went to, and we shared a sanctuary. They still do share a sanctuary as we speak right now. I would like to take the opportunity to welcome the girls from Chebonei Girls High School to the Senate. I am sure you have experienced for yourself the going-ons in this particular house, and you have learned a lot, both in terms of what we do as a Senate, how we debate, and I'm sure when you go back to your lovely school, you will share the experiences with the rest of your colleagues. Take the opportunity to learn and go back, work hard, succeed, because this is the place that you are all destined to work and also to experience in your future life. Welcome to the Senate and welcome to the place where legislation is done. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm honored to extend a welcome to the students from Homa Bay County. Those are university students who are paying a courtesy call to the Senate this afternoon. Honorable Speaker, Homa Bay County is a county of endless potentials. And when you look at the young men visiting the Senate today, it shows it all, Honorable Speaker. To the students that are visiting the Senate today, in this house, we oversight, we legislate, and we represent the county and the county governments. And this afternoon, if the Speaker grants me the opportunity, I'll be presenting a statement on the teenage pregnancy in Homa Bay County. And I know this also is of great interest to you as young men and future leaders. Within the Senate here, Honorable Speaker, I would like to tell our students that we have a number of young senators. Senator Eddie Okech is here, Senator Esi Okanyuri, Senator Ezena, and Senator Methu, and Eddie, Senator Eddie is insisting that Senator Catherine Muma is also a young senator, and I want to agree. That is, and Oburu Odinga, the youth representative in the Senate. I want to implore you, young Kenyans, that not even the sky will limit you. Welcome to the Senate, and I will be shortly seeing you out there to share a bit of pleasantries with you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Karungo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And as I rise to support this motion, Mr. Speaker, I would want to seek your indulgence, Mr. Speaker, because even before I give my remarks, I've noted how senators are being profiled in this House, Mr. Speaker, as to how they vote, Mr. Speaker. I'd want to seek your indulgence and direction, because whether somebody votes that direction or the other direction is their right and they should be protected. And Mr. Speaker, even the other day, we voted on Konza City bill, and those who voted against are being profiled, Mr. Speaker. And if profiling people as per the way they vote is a thing to go with, Mr. Speaker, I want to remind you that the side of the minority never voted for you. They actually walked out when we were voting for you. So if we have to live with conscience, Mr. Speaker, we should always be remembering that, Mr. Speaker. We are not voting machines, but people who vote with their conscience. As I stand to support this motion, Mr. Speaker, I want to say about 18 days ago, Kiambu County received the first disbursement of this year's budget of shillings 1 billion. Mr. Speaker, in 12 days, Kiambu County will receive another 978 million from this.
What is the point of order, Senator Ledama?
Mr. Speaker, I think it's important. I rise on a point of order on statement of facts. I think is a...
What standing order you?
I think it's statement 105. Mr. Speaker, the distinguished senator, I think is a member of Finance Committee. He's not. And if he's not a member of Finance, is it in order for him to mislead the public that funds can be released without being passed in this House? This is when we are debating the disbursement schedule. The only time that Treasury can be able to release money for this financial year is when this House has already approved the disbursement schedule. I believe the money that he's talking about, and he can correct us, is for the previous financial year. But if indeed Treasury released money for this financial year before this House approves this disbursement schedule, then I don't know what we are doing. So, Mr. Speaker, if the distinguished senator can correct his statement so that it doesn't mislead the public, so that we'll know what we are doing here. Because I was prepared to debate this disbursement schedule for the financial year 23-24. If Treasury has already disbursed that money, then I have no business debating it, because then I'll just be rubber stamping something that has already been done. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Karungu.
Mr. Speaker, the government cannot wait when we have mandamanos outside there, interfering with the running of county governments, interfering with the running of government projects, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Karungo, just take your seat. Let me get this over and done with. The point of order raised by Senator Ledama is as follows. And it's not a point of order really directly to the senator who was on his floor, on his feet. The senator for Kiambu, while commenting, said that the government has released all the monies meant for last financial year and proceeded to release the first tranche meant for July. That is what he said. Is that therefore a statement of fact? Because under Standing Order 105, Senator Ledama rose to confirm if indeed that is a statement of fact. If it's not, then he'll call you to order as being disorderly. So leave out the issue of the mandamano, leave alone that long history, and just stick to that, I think we'll make great progress in this matter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I talked about Kiambu. I am the senator of Kiambu. By him questioning about my county, I did not talk about Narok, Mr. Speaker. I said Kiambu has received 1 billion by 15th. And in 12 days, Kiambu is going to receive another 978 million, Mr. Speaker. So I don't know his interests. I'm talking about my county, Mr. Speaker. I'm talking about Kiambu, Mr. Speaker.
Order, senators. Order, senators. Order, senators. You know, let us not mix things here. Okay. Senator Ledama, senator for Kiambu, has said whatever he stated is factual. You rose on a point of order to challenge him on that, and he has stood and said, indeed, it is factual. What I've said is concerning Kiambu, and Kiambu did receive all the monies meant from last financial year, and on the 15th, Kiambu received this much. And he stated that that is factual. And therefore, your point of order as far as 105, because you challenged him to, the other limb of your point of order is, if that is so, if the government can then release money before we debate this particular motion, and that is not something that the senator for Kiambu can bear the brunt. His was to confirm that, yes, what I've said is true. My county received this much on this particular date. Whether the government is doing that illegally or otherwise, as you are putting it, it's not his concern. His concern is, I received this money. Yes, Senator, yes.
Mr. Speaker, the framers of the Constitution established 3 arms of government to allow separation of powers and to be able to institute a check and balance system. Mr. Speaker, this House passed the County Allocation of Revenue Act 2023. And in that act, the law also gives this House the power to be able to approve the cash disbursement schedule. So, Mr. Speaker, if he's indeed setting aside the issues of Kiambu, Narok, or interest whatsoever that the distinguished senator was talking about, if indeed the government, the executive, the Ministry of Treasury disbursed money without the approval of this House, it is a matter that should concern this House, Mr. Speaker. So when I rose here to request for that to be substantiated, the best, Mr. Speaker, that can help this House is for the distinguished senator to table the facts that Treasury has indeed released that money, so that it can be able to be part of the Hansard, that Treasury released money before this House approved that. It is very simple, Mr. Speaker. It is not a matter of interest of Kiambu. Of course, I'm interested in Kiambu because it's part of Kenya. But I'm also interested in ensuring that all the 47 counties receive money approved by this House. Mr. Speaker, the Senate plays a critical role. This is a bill that originates from this House. The cash disbursement schedule cannot be originated from the National Assembly. The Division of Revenue Bill will be originated from the National Assembly. But when it comes to the issue of the cash disbursement schedule, it comes out of here because we are now dividing part of our 385 billion, which is going to the counties. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm rising on an issue of statement of fact and the importance of ensuring fiduciary to the rule of law. That is my essence of rising on that point of order. It is not on whether, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate, Mr. Speaker, you trying to correct or maybe put certain things in order, but it is also concerning to me when a law is broken. You cannot apply the law retrospectively. In this case, if we sit here and we debate and we approve this cash disbursement schedule, then of course we'll be doing so retrospectively because it has already been overtaken by events. So, Mr. Speaker, that is my greatest concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Ledama, I carefully gave you that opportunity and listened to you attentively. Now, when you raise on a point of order, it presumed that the senator speaking, according to you, is disorderly and you want to call him to order, and therefore you rise on a point of order. Now, when the senator for Kiambu rose to speak, he stated that in Kiambu County, all the monies meant for that county for last year was received. He proceeded to say the monies meant for July, the July tranche, was also received. To that extent, he's not out of order. Your main concern, which is a valid concern, Senator Ledama, is the second limb of your point of order, which cannot then be attributable to the Senate of Kiambu. When you rose to say, I'm concerned, because these monies that are supposed to be disbursed this financial year ought to be disbursed after the Senate has debated this particular motion that we are debating now. So how come Kiambu has received its July share? That is not for the Senator of Kiambu to respond. The person to respond to that concern is Treasury. The Senator for Kiambu merely said, we have received. The person who is responsible for that disbursement is actually the Treasury. So, Senator Ledama, this is what I could advise you. You can, now that you have been told that Kiambu has received its disbursement for July, which disbursement can only have come from the Treasury, and according to you, it ought not to have done that until Senate has debated this matter, then you can bring that matter to the door of Treasury. Senator Ledama, I am making my observation and giving directive in this matter. You know you cannot debate the chair. So my advice to you, Senator Ledama, having noticed from Kiambu that it has received its share for July, before Senate has debated this matter, take this war straight to where it lies, Treasury. Senator Ledama, so you can do that by way of seeking a statement to ask Treasury, why did Treasury release these monies before the Senate debated it? That cannot be handled by the Senator for Kiambu. It is so directed, and we move in that manner. Senator for Kiambu, proceed. Proceed. Senator Mogeni, what is the point of order? And Senator Mogeni, I will refer you to standing, before you make your point of order, I will refer you to Standing Order 121 and 122, where a matter the chair has pronounced itself. You cannot debate the directive of the chair. If you do, you'll be deemed disorderly, and the consequences will ensue immediately. Proceed, Senator Mogeni.
You know, Mr. Speaker, we have come to this House as elected senators, representing the county of Nyamira. Mr. Speaker, every Wednesday I watch debates in the House of Commons. A chamber like this, Mr. Speaker,
Senator Kinyua,
a chamber like
out
this,
of
Mr.
order.
Speaker, we have not come here,
Senator
Mr. Speaker.
Mogeni.
Mr.
Senator
Speaker,
Mogeni.
we have not come here
I
to listen.
expected you, Senator Mogeni, the chair is speaking.
Yes. You
I
know, Mr.
expected you to say, I rise on a point of order pursuant to
Yes,
standing
I'm-
order
I'm-
this.
Mr. Speaker,
and then you give us that history.
I'm rising on standing order number 105.1. Because, Mr. Speaker, I am here today as the senator of Nyamira. And when I go to Nyamira this weekend, Mr. Speaker, I'm expected to answer some questions from the people I represent. Mr. Speaker, I've heard this afternoon that the county government of Kiambu has already received disbursements for the month of July. That is on record, Mr. Speaker. Meaning, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, order.
Meaning, Mr. Speaker.
Order, Senators.
Meaning,
May
Mr.
the Senator
Speaker,
be heard in silence.
Meaning, Mr. Speaker, that contrary to the provisions of Article 27, and in a very discriminatory manner, the Treasury, in defiance of the Constitution, has already disbursed money to the county government of Kiambu, whereas other counties like Nyamira, we have not received any disbursement. So, Mr. Speaker, because I want to take up this matter
Order,
with
honorable senators.
With the Treasury, Mr. Speaker, I want the senator of Kiambu, understanding order number 105.1, to substantiate the allegation that money has already been transferred to Kiambu County government, so that, Mr. Speaker, we take up this matter with Treasury. Why is Kiambu, the county government of Kiambu, receiving preferential treatment? And the point I was making, Mr. Speaker, is that we want this to be an interesting chamber, Mr. Speaker. When I'm rising on this point of order, I have nothing against my good friend, the governor of Kiambu. Senator Kalwale, you watch debates in the House of Commons. The Prime Minister of England comes to the floor, and he sits there and is asked questions by the people's representatives. So when we rise here, Mr. Speaker, we are raising these issues on behalf of the people who elected us, Mr. Speaker. And we want this chamber to be an interesting chamber of debate, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, I'm sure even Commissioner Kinyua there wants this to be an interesting chamber, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, unless we are disorderly in any way, let us make this house lively. If a senator is making a statement that is not factual, we have a right to challenge that senator, Mr. Speaker. And that happens all over, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable senators, order. Senator Mogeni.
I thought I'm on a point of order.
Senator Mogeni. Yeah, even if you're on a point of order, as the chair, I can order you to yield and sit. Senator Mogeni, before you made your point of order, I took time to cite the standing orders. I have already made a directive on this particular matter. Now, debating that directive I've given amounts to a disorderly conduct. And I refer you to Standing Order 122, 1A. A senator commits an act of gross disorderly, not just disorderly, gross disorderly conduct if the senator defies a ruling or direction of the speaker or chairperson of the committee. You may not agree with what I've said, but it stands. You cannot debate that particular directive I've given. And I've given you such a wonderful way of how we can handle this. The disbursement, according to the Kiambu senator, was actually made by Treasury. If you feel that disbursement is in breach of the law, then you have recourse in that you can seek for a statement why Treasury did release that money before Senate could debate and pass the disbursement schedule. It is within your right. Pushing the senator for Kiambu to do that. He has confirmed, as the senator of Kiambu, that Kiambu has received. Are we doubting that? Yes. We are doubting that. So this is a matter that I've already ruled on. Senator Karungo, proceed to conclude your comments. Proceed. What is the matter of procedure?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I thank you for your indulgence. Mr. Speaker, if I'm speaking to procedures of this House, if I invite you, with your permission, to contents of speech, Standing Order number 101, if you do not, Mr. Speaker, make decisive and aggressive adherence to these standing orders, our House will degenerate. 101, Mr. Speaker, 5. It says, it shall be out of order for a senator to criticize or call to question the proceedings in the National Assembly, County Assembly, or the Speaker's ruling. Mr. Speaker, I've heard you painfully.
Senator Boni,
yes.
We are past that.
Yes, I wanted to emphasize, because it is procedure.
No.
We are looking like we are being controlled by...
It is, this House is not being controlled by anybody other than the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So kindly take your seat.
Nyinyi.
So that matter is there. Senator Kiambu, proceed to conclude your comments, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for your guidance. Anybody who would want to know more, to do so through a statement. And just also to help them, Narok, out of the 9 billion, you have received 781. Nyamira, out of 5 billion, you have received 453 million. So put that in the statement as we go forward. Mr. Speaker.
Senator Karungo, Senator Kenywa would wish to inform you.
Anytime is my commissioner.
Bwana Spika, ni ukweli mtupu na ni dhahiri shahiri ya kwamba hizi pesa ambazo anasoma zimetumwa katika gatuzi zetu, Bwana Spika. Lakini ni vizuri Karungo Wadhanga waelewe na asijisumbue zaidi, kwa sababu hawa maseneta wa upande wa upinzani wamekuwa katika maandamano, Bwana Spika.
Senator Kinyua,
hawana uzoefu na hawaelewi.
Senator Kinyua, that is not a point of order. Kindly have your seat. That is not information to aid Senator of Kiambu in making his comments, honestly. Senator Karungo, proceed to conclude your comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And holding everything constant, assuming that they cannot disperse these monies without the law, does that mean the Senate has already failed? We have gone to the next month. If they were to wait for all this, would we just be waiting here for people at the county to suffer just because we could not pass this, Mr. Speaker? But that will be deliberated when the statement is asked. Mr. Speaker, my question is, out of the 1 billion already released in Kiambu County, why are people suffering? Why do we have the UHC staff who are committed to the county government, about 250 of them, not absorbed by the counties? With all these monies, Mr. Speaker, every county can budget for the UHC staff and absorb them as their employees, Mr. Speaker. UHC staff are suffering because they are paid about 50,000, and if you have a certificate, you are paid 40,000. Yet your counterpart, who is employed by the government, is paid about 70,000. We need to fight this inequality, Mr. Speaker, and it can only be done once this money has been disbursed and the counties have done the budget to factor these health workers, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the national government is building about 181 markets. And 72 out of all those have already been advertised for tendering, Mr. Speaker. It is sad to note that in Kiambu County, there is one such market which is already completed, called Githurai Market. And for almost 1 year, it has not been occupied. Reason, the county government is not able to allocate people. It is collecting money from the people or from amambogas for them to be allocated as stand within that market, Mr. Speaker. I believe any county that loves its people will always prioritize their people and give them places to uplift them economically, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm speaking here today, and the reason I'm talking about Kiambu County is because I have everything about Kiambu on my fingertips. And we should be talking here every time, and we support each other instead of fighting each other, Mr. Speaker, because we do not understand what my people are going through, yet money has been dispersed, Mr. Speaker. And when such governors are invited at the SIPA committee, they are given leeway, Mr. Speaker. They ask for a month, they are given. They ask for another month, they are given. Somebody who was supposed to appear before the Senate by the month of March is said to appear, should be appearing in July, Mr. Speaker. And yet somebody stand here and tell me that who took that money to Kiambu? You know, Mr. Speaker. So, as I stand here, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that this government of William Samoei Ruto is devoted to support devolution, Mr. Speaker. If you look at the schedule, the money will be sent to the counties every month. It is 32 billion this month, 30 billion the next month. Just like that all the way to 15th of June 2024. The only month they are going to get a lot of money is the month of April 2024. They'll get 34 billion. We should be asking ourselves as a Senate, what are the governors doing with these monies, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, I heard Senator Catherine, she's here, saying about the feeding of children in Nairobi in primary school is a national government rather than a county government exercise. I would want to mention here, I wish all the governors in 47 counties can embrace that program and feed the children. We are not feeding the schools. We are feeding the children. And it is a nutritional issue, Mr. Speaker. It's a health issue, and health is devolved, Mr. Speaker. So we should not be fighting the county government program just because we believe sometimes it is the work of the county government, the national government, Mr. Speaker. As I conclude, as I had earlier said before I was interrupted, Mr. Speaker, it is good to know 18 days ago, all the counties in the Republic of Kenya received their July disbursement. Check with your governor if you talk to him. Check with the Treasury. You will understand that this government is serious. Even if the Senate is not, this government is. And in 12 days, every county government will receive their truncation, will receive their disbursement, because Kenya Kwanza government is committed to uplift devolution and is committed to make sure our people at the county level are not fighting. As we walk out of this assembly, of this Senate, when you're having important debates, please, let's not walk out on this one. Let's not walk out on this one. Let's fight and let's vote and make sure that it has been passed. I settle my case, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator Karungu Thangwa, for your contribution. Senator Osotsi Godfrey Atieno, Vihiga County.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to also rise and support this motion, which is cash disbursement for the financial year 2023-2024. Mr. Speaker, I have had an opportunity to look at the report prepared by the Finance and Budget Committee, and I want to thank them for that report. And in that report, Mr. Speaker, it is very clear the amounts of money that are going to be dispersed to the counties and the effective dates when that disbursement is going to occur. Mr. Speaker, this disbursement schedule is guided by Section 17 of the PFM Act that clearly says two things, Mr. Speaker. One, that at the beginning of every quarter, and in any event not later than 15th day from the commencement of the quarter, the Treasury shall disburse monies to the county government. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, it says that the disbursement referred to herein shall be done with a schedule prepared by the National Treasury in consultation, Mr. Speaker, with the Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council, and most importantly, Mr. Speaker, with the approval of Senate. And thereafter, the disbursement schedule is gazetted in the Kenya Gazette. Mr. Speaker, this is a process. And clearly, when you look at this process, it's a legal process which culminates in publication in the Kenya Gazette. But Mr. Speaker, in most cases, this schedule is not adhered to. This schedule is never adhered to because you find that money is delayed. Disbursement of money is delayed to the counties. Sometimes even by 2-3 months. And because of that, counties have suffered. Pending bills have occurred, delayed implementation of projects, challenges with absorption. So this is an exercise that this Senate should take seriously. And Mr. Speaker, we cannot be spending our time here discussing this schedule, approving it, when the executive is not going to follow it. It is useless. It is making us look bad as a Senate that we can approve a schedule here and we become toothless in enforcing it. Mr. Speaker, I would want to urge the Senate, effective from the approval of this schedule, to be serious and ensure that, particularly the Committee Concerned on Finance, and ensure that this schedule is adhered to. Because this schedule is not just an arbitrary schedule. There is a process that goes into it. Projection, budget projections, revenue projections, the Department of Planning is involved for them to come up with this schedule. It is then taken to IBEC for discussion. IBEC, which has representation from the national government and county government. It cannot, therefore, come to the level where Treasury decides when to send the money to the counties and when not to send the money to the counties. Even as we thank the Kenya Kwanza government for ensuring that monies for the last financial years was 100% disbursed by June 2023. But we must also appreciate that from December 2022 to around March there was delayed disbursement to the counties. And that affected service delivery in the counties. So, Mr. Speaker, all I'm urging this Senate is that the relevant committees, which in this case is Finance and Budget Committee, must ensure that this schedule that we pass here is not an exercise in futility, it is adhered to, and the monies are sent to the counties within the time frame indicated on this schedule, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, allow me also to talk about the role of Senate. Sometimes, Mr. Speaker, I get concerned where we are heading to as a Senate. Article 96 of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, provides for the role of Senate. And the role of Senate is to represent counties and protect the interest of counties and the county governments. Mr. Speaker, with all due respect, we respect and like our political parties. We like our coalition. We like our party leaders. But the primary role of a senator, when you get through that door, Mr. Speaker, is to, number one, protect, represent your counties. Sometimes when you sit here and you get an impression that we are not really representing our counties, we are representing executive, or we are representing our political parties. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, when we were given an opportunity to increase money that goes into our counties to 407, it was very disappointing that this Senate rejected the money and went for a lower figure. That is a fact. And Mr. Speaker, in the next few days, we will all be going to Eldoret for devolution conference. What message is the Senate going to say in that devolution conference? When we denied our counties more money, we may argue and say we gave them an extra 15 billion. Yes, but we had an opportunity to make it higher than 15 billion to 407. Mr. Speaker, it's very disappointing. We must sit down and ask ourselves, are we doing justice to our counties? So my colleagues, I want to argue, and Senator Khalwale, I respect you as an elder. I came to this house because I used to watch Senate, Khalwale making contributions. But I want to urge you and your colleagues.
Senator Boni Halwale, what is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, I'm rising on standing order number 105. And with all humility, the Constitution says the money that will be dispersed to the board governments should not be less than 15%. Mr. Speaker, when we increased by 15 billion, we actually met the threshold by giving 24% of the last audited account. Is the senator in order, or is he ignorant of the fact that 24% is way above 15%, and therefore is he in order to impute improper motives to the Senator of Kakamega when he knows very well that we met the constitutional threshold? And Mr. Speaker, DORA bill is about dividing revenue between the national and the county government, and thou shall never give less than 15%. We gave 24. Is he in order to mislead the country?
Senator Osotsi, you've heard the response.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank Senator Khalwale for interrupting me unnecessarily. But I want to tell him, if we listen to me very carefully, I said, as a Senate, if we are given an opportunity to get more money to our counties, more money to our counties, let's go for the option of more money. Because he is talking about 385, which was an increase by 15 billion. But 407 would be an increase of 37 billion. So if you listen to me, it was an opportunity because it was a motion And it was a report brought by the committee where my good friend Khalware sits.
Senator Sotsi, Senator Eddie would like to inform you. Do you want to be informed?
Eddie is a very programmatic young man. I'm ready. He informs me.
Proceed, Senator Eddie.
Senator, I wanted to inform Senator Osotsi that the Constitution under Article 216 gives the Commission of Revenue Allocation the mandate to help the nation determine the equitable share. And I'll read it because this information it can relate to Senator Boni Aluale. The principal function of the Commission of Revenue Allocation is to make recommendations concerning the basis for equitable sharing of revenue raised by the national government. This information is important, Senator Sosi, to you because the 407 billion that we were suggesting for increase to the counties was actually determined by the Commission on Revenue Allocation. And that's a fact, and they advised the committee of this House, called this for Committee on Finance and Budget, with clear indications of where those money were going to come from.
You have made your point, Senator Eddie.
Okay, I'm just finishing. So the money that...
Your point of order was to inform. You have informed Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Eddie. Actually, CRA is the one that came up with the 407. And the CRA is a constitutional commission in this country. Mr. Speaker, before I was interrupted, I was trying to emphasize the significance of Article 96, that this Senate, when called upon, on any matter on this floor, our first priority should be our counties. Our first priority should never be whether you are executive or you are not in the executive. Should be our counties. And we have seen some drawback to devolution. We have seen a conversation that, for example, Mr. Speaker, that primary health care, functions like community health volunteers are now wanting to be taken over by the national government. What is the health committee doing about it? Regardless of whether you are in government or not, something has to be done about it. And many other cases, issues of housing, which is under my good friend Senator Thangwa as a chairperson. What are we doing about it? Because this fixation on which side of the coalition we are in, it is going to interfere with the proper functioning of this Senate, Mr. Speaker. So I want to implore upon my colleagues in this House from both sides of the political divide to ensure that our guiding principle in this House is how well are we going to represent our counties and how well are we going to protect the interests of the counties and their government. Point number 2, Mr. Speaker, is that Article 219 of the Constitution is very clear that a county share of revenue raised by the national government shall be transferred to the county without undue delay and without deduction, except when the transfer has been stopped under Article 225. Mr. Speaker, it is high time that this Senate took keen interest in Article 219, because we cannot be saying we are senators, but when we go to our counties, our governors tell us that we have not received money for 3 months. We have not paid salaries. We have stopped projects, and we call ourselves senators. We are not doing our work. The Constitution is there for us. 219, Article 219. Why are we not invoking that? Because Treasury receives money, collects money, but it does not prioritize allocation or disbursement to counties. It prioritizes national functions. So, Mr. Speaker, even as we pass this schedule, we must take into account Article 219. And the Finance Committee should do that. Sometimes I even think this Finance Committee should be led by the minority side. Because this is a committee that has to make very weighty decisions. But because they are led by the majority side, they cannot make that decision. Even as we thank the Kenya Kwanza government that for the first time they have disbursed all the money. Mr. Speaker, I want to tell you that had it not been the committee where I chair, the Public Investment and Special Funds Committee, we took up this task. We put pressure on the Treasury CS. I remember sometimes we went until 10 in the night, putting pressure and discussing the issue of disbursement to the counties. So we want the Finance Committee, please up your game. Up your game so that you ensure the law is complied with, particularly Article 219 of the Constitution.
Senator Sotsi, when the chair speaks, take attention. Do you want to be informed by Senator Chute?
Senator Chute is a good friend of mine and is a very reasonable member of the majority side. I would like to be informed.
Proceed, Senator Chute.
The mic.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and also Senator Sotsi. I want to inform him that the Kenya Kwanza, he says, for the first time, the Kenya Kwanza government has sent the money. I want to inform him that this is the first, even as you know, we've not gotten our first budget. So what we are trying to do is the mess that was created before. We say, no, we have to send money to the county, and that is what we have done, and that is the first time we are doing it. So this is the first time for this government. Don't say, for the first time we did it. It is what we have done now. It is what is supposed to be done by the handshake government. So when you say congratulations to us, thank you very much for saying that, but please kindly be informed that this is not our budget. It is a handshake budget. Thank you very much.
Senator Sotsi, kindly wind up also.
Mr. Speaker, you know, that is what I alluded to earlier about the role of senators, particularly Article 96 of the Constitution, that we are here to talk about our counties. I said that the money has been disbursed by 30th of June, 100%, yes. But Mr. Speaker also said that it's not that there was no delay. There was a delay. 4 months delay from December to March. And then towards the end is when they just rushed and sent the money. But that was not without the input of the Senate. The committee of CPIC worked very hard, long meetings with the Treasury to push for the disbursement of these funds.
What's your
because
point of
we
order,
have
Senator
been getting audit queries around there.
There's a point of order from Senator Wakoli. Senator, proceed.
Mheshimiwa Spika, kanuni 105. Lazima Mheshimiwa Senator wajibike kwa matamshi yake. Sisi kama maseneta na viongozi wa Kenya Kwanza tulikula kiapo kufanya kazi kwa mujibu wa katiba na kuhakikisha ugatuzi unafanya kazi. Hawezi kujilimbikizia heko kwamba kama si wao kaunti zetu hazingepata pesa. Hiki ni kinaya, na sisi kama wengi katika serikali tuna vikao na Mheshimiwa Rais. Haya ndio masuala sisi ujadili kusukuma ajenda ya maendeleo ya gatuzi zetu. Sasa naomba usiwe wa kujipiga upatu kwa sababu hata hapa kwenye jumba la Senate wengi wenu hampo. Sisi tunavumilia kuwasikiza na kuwafanyia mema wa Kenya ambao walitupigia kura. So Mheshimiwa Spika, atoe thibitisho kwamba walifanya mikutano mpaka asubuhi, kwamba ili watu wa Kenya wapate pesa. Lakini cha mwisho lazima afurahi kwamba sisi ni wachapakazi, sisi ni Wakenya ambao tunawapenda Wakenya. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Senator Osotsi, could you conclude on your comments? Give him the mic. Clerk, give Senator Osotsi the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, Mr. Speaker, Senator Wakoli is from my region, and he's still a new senator, still running the ropes of how Parliament works. But I want to tell him that, Mr. Speaker, if you give me Tuesday, I will table here minutes of the Committee of Public Investment and Special Fund, in which this matter was dealt with. I will even table letters to the Treasury, including even letters to summon the Treasury CS to appear before our committee and answer issues around disbursement of funds. That I am prepared to do, Mr. Speaker. And we even pushed for it. Even we had a memorandum. And the date is there. Senator Olekina is here to confirm. He's a member of my committee, Mr.
You're
Speaker.
given up to Tuesday to do so.
I will do so, Mr. Speaker.
Conclude.
Mr. Speaker, you know, this is what I said is one way of defeating Article 96 of the Constitution, through frivolous point of orders, whenever serious issues are being raised in this House, which, Mr. Speaker, I call upon you to apply Standing Order number 1, so that this issue of frivolous point of orders, especially 105 and 101, should end. We need quality debate. We need to inform this House, and we are not here to protect our various coalition or the executive. We are here because of our counties and the people who elected us. Mr. Speaker, allow me now to talk about disbursement to my counties. My county, Mr. Speaker, is going to get an additional 200 billion shillings. This is still very little. And, Mr. Speaker, CRA has started the process of 200 million. Has started the process of 4.
Senator Osotsi, your time is up. Senator Osotsi, kindly take your seat. I've got a communication to make from the chair. Honorable senators, in the public gallery, we have 63 students accompanied by 4 teachers from Lona Laboso Girls Secondary School in Bomet County who are in the Senate on an education tour. Honorable senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. Members, this is an institution from the county that I represent, and I'll call upon Senator Olekina to welcome them on behalf of yours truly.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you very much. Let me welcome the students from Lona Loboso Secondary School. Mr. Speaker, this is a very, very special school. I remember I went there with the late governor to campaign, but not really to campaign, but to do a fundraiser for the school. It is an amazing school, and I want to tell the students that the lady who the school was named after had a vision. The sister also came in, had a vision to support you. You've now come to the Senate to see the kind of work that we're doing here. When we debate, we are debating not because of our own interests, but because of the interests of future generations. Your senator, who is currently sitting in as the speaker, is a distinguished gentleman. I sat with him in the, what was the name of the committee? In the bipartisan committee, and I can tell you, anytime we made any single progress was because of your senator. So when you go back home, you need to tell the constituents, your parents, although I know the school has got a lot of students from Narok. In fact, maybe 60 or 70% of the students from that school are from Narok. But there are also other locals from that area, to tell them that your senator is doing a fantastic job, and he's a distinguished lawyer, and is someone who we really regard very highly in this house. This is how we work. We debate. We debate for or against any motion, and he's doing a fantastic job. And I hope that one day we'll see one of you sitting here. You know, Senator Sigei is a very young man, but he's currently sitting in as a speaker, and he's also a very distinguished lawyer. So I welcome you, and I wish you a wonderful visit of the Senate, and hopefully next time we'll still come back to the school and support it. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator Olekina. I want to give this opportunity to Senator Mundigi Alex Munyi.
Asanti, Bwana Spika. Naunga mkono kupitishwa kwa budget kwa Wizara ya Fedha kupitisha pesa kwa sababu
What is your point of order, Senator Omogeni?
Mr. Speaker, you have heard my good friend, Senator Mundigi, a very good friend of mine, saying, you know, in his opening remarks that he supports this motion that wants to pass the budget. As you know, Mr. Speaker, the Senate never passes the budget, so may the Senator, who is a good friend of mine, inform me which budget is this that the Senate is passing, and which is not in the order paper.
Senior Counsel Omogeni, if I heard him right, because he was submitting Kiswahili, he said further, not budget. And I believe he was making reference to the schedule for purposes of the disbursement of the budget that was passed. Senator Mundigi, proceed.
Bwana Spika, naunga mkono mambo ya hii budget, na pia naunga mkono serikali ya Kenya Kwanza kwa ile kazi inafanya. Kwa miaka mingi kumekuwa na shinda, na hii ni budget ya kwanza ya Kenya Kwanza. Na pia naunga mkono Wizara ya Fedha ile kazi imefanya, kwa sababu ya hii mwezi wa saba kama Embu naona kwa mwaka moja tutakuwa na tumepatiwa bilioni 500 milioni 341, na mwezi wa saba tumepata shilingi milioni 454. Miaka mingi tumetaapika. Nataka niseme naunga mkono kwa sababu sasa hakutakuwa na ndeni, kila mwezi inaonekana mpango inaendelea vizuri.